My boyfriend texted, "I'll be staying at Clara's tonight. Don't wait up." I replied, "Thanks for letting me know." Then I packed his entire gaming setup and left it at Clara's door. His 2 a.m. Sanao panic call confirmed he'd made his choice. I'm sitting here at 3 a.m., phone on silent, watching my ex-boyfriend, Declan Rivers, blow up my screen with increasingly desperate messages. 2 hours ago, he was banging on my door. An hour ago, he was crying outside Clara's apartment building. Now he's at his brother's place, finally understanding what consequences look like. Let me rewind to yesterday evening. We've been together 18 months, and he's been living in my apartment for the past 6 months. I'm Isabel Rodriguez, 32, marketing manager at a mid-size firm downtown. I make decent money, enough to cover my $1,800 rent plus utilities in this expensive city. Declan's 29, a freelance graphic designer who's been building his portfolio and contributes maybe $300 a month for groceries when he remembers. Things had been off lately. He'd been secretive with his phone, taking calls in the other room, working late nights on projects that somehow never seemed to materialize into actual income. Classic signs, but I wanted to trust him. I'd been down this road before with my ex-fiancé years ago, and I promised myself I'd learned those lessons. Apparently, I needed a refresher course. Then, at 7 o'clock yesterday evening, while I'm making Sunday dinner for us, his favorite chicken enchiladas with homemade salsa verde, he texts me, "Working late on Clara's website redesign. Going to crash at her place tonight. Don't wait up. Clara Bennett." His 26-year-old client, who somehow needs to discuss design concepts at 11 p.m., and sends him inspiration photos that look suspiciously like Instagram selfies. The same Clara who giggles too much during their business calls and texts him at midnight about font choices. I've seen her picture on his phone enough times to know she's exactly his type, petite blonde with the kind of Instagram aesthetic that screams, "I need constant validation." My response, "Thanks for letting me know." That's it. No questions, no drama, just acknowledgement. He immediately tried to bait a reaction. "You're not upset?" Then, "Most girlfriends would be jealous." Then, "Clara's just a client, don't be weird about this." I didn't reply. I've learned that silence speaks louder than arguments, and honestly, I was too busy processing what he'd just told me. In 18 months together, Declan had never once stayed anywhere overnight without me. Not at his brother's place, not at friends' houses, nowhere. But suddenly, he needed to crash at his female client's apartment for work? Here's the thing about our arrangement that Declan seemed to forget. He moved into my apartment. His name isn't on the lease, never has been. I cover rent, utilities, internet, all streaming, services, and most of the groceries. He was supposedly saving money to get his own place and contribute more to our shared expenses, but somehow that savings goal kept getting redirected into upgrading his gaming setup instead. PlayStation 5, custom-built PC with RGB lighting, dual monitors, mechanical keyboard, gaming chair that cost more than most people's monthly car payment, professional-grade headset. Probably $3,000 worth of equipment taking up half my living room. Equipment that I'd helped him research and even drove him to pick up when packages were too heavy for building delivery. If he wants to stay at Clara's, cool. He can stay there permanently. I turned off the stove, dinner half made, and took a moment to really think about what I was about to do. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment decision. This was 3 years of therapy, teaching me to recognize my worth and set appropriate boundaries. This was remembering what my mother always said. "Mija, never let a man treat you like an option while you treat him like a priority." I went to the living room and started disconnecting his tech setup. Every cable labeled and wrapped properly. I'm nothing if not methodical. Every component carefully packed in its original box, because thank God he was the type of nerd who kept everything. His gaming PC went into its original packaging with all the foam inserts. PlayStation, controllers, headset, that mechanical keyboard he was so proud of that supposedly made him type faster. Even his collection of energy drinks from the mini fridge and that ridiculous RGB mousepad that cycled through colors like a disco. Then his bedroom belongings. Clothes folded and packed with the same care I'd give my own things, because this wasn't about being petty. This was about being thorough. His work supplies, camera equipment for content creation that never quite materialized, design books he'd bought but never opened, tablet and Apple Pencil, charging cables for every device known to man. Even his collection of vintage band t-shirts he claimed were investment pieces that would be worth something someday. I was methodical about it, almost meditative. 4 large boxes for the tech components, 2 more for clothes and personal items, plus 2 specialized cases for his camera gear that he'd insisted on buying but used maybe twice. As I packed, I found myself thinking about all the ways I'd accommodated his dreams and goals while my own took a back seat. The freelance work that never quite paid enough. The networking events that were really just him hanging out with other wannabe creatives. The constant optimism about the big break that was always just around the corner. By 10:30 p.m., everything was loaded in my SUV. I'd looked up Clara's address from when he had me drop him off for a client meeting last month, the same meeting where he'd insisted I couldn't come up because it would be unprofessional. 25-minute drive across town to the trendy arts district where all the young creatives lived in overpriced studios and called it lifestyle. Got there at 11 p.m. Her apartment building had a secured entrance, but a couple was leaving and held the door. Thanks, random strangers, for helping me deliver my boyfriend to his new life. Found her unit on the 2nd floor. Could hear music and laughter inside. 2 voices, definitely male and female. Definitely didn't sound like a work session focused on website typography and color palettes. I stacked everything neatly outside her door. All 6 boxes, both tech cases, arranged like a professional moving service had delivered them. Took photos from multiple angles for documentation, something my lawyer friend had taught me years ago about protecting yourself legally. Then I left a note on top, written on my goods stationery. Declan's belongings as requested. He's all yours now, Isabel. Drove home, feeling oddly calm. The kind of calm that comes after making a decision you should have made months ago. I changed my Wi-Fi password to self-respect 924, a little petty but therapeutic. Removed him from my Netflix, Hulu, Spotify family plan, and Amazon Prime. Updated my door code on the electronic lock. Then I finished making dinner, opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion, and decided that choosing myself qualified as pretty damn special. At 11:45 p.m., the first call came. I watched his name light up my screen and sent it straight to voicemail. Then the texts started flooding in. Isabel, what is this? Why is my stuff at Clara's? This isn't funny. Pick up the phone. I'm coming home right now. The entitlement in those messages was staggering. Coming home, to my apartment, where his name had never been on a single document. At 12:30 a.m., he was at my door. The keypad wouldn't work, obviously. Started pounding and ringing the doorbell like a man who'd never heard the word consequences in his life. Mrs. Patterson from 2B probably loved that at midnight on a Sunday. I texted back once. You chose to stay at Clara's. I helped you move permanently. Please stop disturbing my neighbors. He called 47 times in the next hour. 47. I know, because my phone keeps count of missed calls, and honestly, the sheer audacity was almost impressive. My phone stayed on silent while I finished my wine and watched old episodes of The Office. Sometimes you need Jim Halpert's calm competence to remind you that reasonable people exist in the world. At 2 a.m., he called from his brother Colin's phone. I actually answered that one, thinking it might be an emergency. Wrong move. Isabel, you psycho! You can't just kick me out. I didn't kick you out. You moved out when you decided to spend the night at another woman's house. It was work. One night for a project. His voice had that whiny, desperate edge that I'd heard before but never quite registered as the red flag it was. Looking back, every time he didn't get his way, this same tone emerged. The tone of a man who'd never been told no and meant it. If it was work, you would have stayed at a hotel or come home after finishing. You chose Clara's bed. We weren't. Nothing happened. Doesn't matter now. Your stuff is there. You're there. We're done. Where am I supposed to live? And there it was. The question that revealed everything. Not how do I fix this, or I made a mistake. Just, where am I supposed to live? Like I was his mother, responsible for his housing situation at 29 years old. You chose Clara's last night. Seems like you figured that out already. She has a boyfriend. He showed up and saw all my stuff. She's freaking out. I almost laughed. Almost. Sounds like Clara's problem. You did this on purpose. I did exactly what you asked. You wanted to stay at Clara's. Now you can stay there permanently. He started losing it then, the entitled man-child who thought he could have his cake and eat it too, finally facing consequences. His voice cracked like a teenager's. I have nowhere to go. Should have thought about that before texting me you were sleeping at another woman's house. I'll call the police. Please do. Explain to them how your ex-girlfriend packed your belongings and delivered them to the address where you said you'd be staying. I'm sure they'll find that fascinating. Click. It's now 3 a.m. He sent 89 messages ranging from threats to apologies to more threats. My favorite, you'll regret this when you're alone forever. Honey, I'd rather be alone than be anyone's financial safety net while they shop around for better options. But let me tell you about the morning after, because that's when things got really interesting. Woke up at 8 a.m. to my landlord calling. Apparently, Declan showed up at the rental office at 7:30 demanding a key, claiming there was a misunderstanding about the locks. No misunderstanding, Mr. Peterson. He moved out last night, never was on the lease anyway. He says he lives there legally. He was a guest who chose to leave. I can send you the original lease if needed. No need, Ms. Rodriguez. I have it here. Just checking since he was very insistent. Mr. Peterson has been my landlord for 3 years. He's seen me pay rent on time every month, handle maintenance requests professionally, never cause drama. Declan, on the other hand, was just some guy who occasionally answered my door. He's also no longer my problem. The landlord actually chuckled. Understood. I'll handle this. By 9 a.m., the flying monkeys started. But first was my mom, Carmen, calling from Phoenix where she was visiting my aunt. Mija, I heard through the grapevine about Declan. Good for you. Wait, what? I never liked him, freeloading off my successful daughter while she paid for everything. You want me to send your brother over? Mom, how did you even... Zoe called me last night, said you finally grew a spine. I'm proud of you, Isabel. That boy was using you. I love my mom, 62 years old and still ready to fight anyone who hurts her kids. Then came the guilt trip calls. Declan's brother Colin tried the reasonable approach first. Isabel, this is pretty harsh. He made one mistake. Colin, he didn't make a mistake. He made a choice. I respected it. He's sleeping on my couch. Sounds temporary. He seemed pretty committed to Clara's place last night. Clara kicked him out. Her boyfriend came home. Again, not my problem. Your brother chose to play games. Games have consequences. He loves you. He loved my apartment and my financial support. There's a difference. Colin got quiet then. He knew I was right. He'd probably been watching his little brother coast through life on other people's generosity for years. Then Clara herself called. The absolute audacity of this woman. Isabel, this is Clara Bennett. I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. Declan said he was staying at your place. I made it easier for everyone. Nothing happened between us. Then you won't mind if I forwards your 11 p.m. text messages to your boyfriend. The ones where you call Declan baby and talk about how talented his hands are. Silence. Beautiful. Telling silence. Yeah, he left his iPad logged into his messages. Interesting reading material. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You wanted to play house with someone else's boyfriend. Congratulations, he's available now. I don't want him. This was never supposed to happen. Then you should have thought about that before you started your little midnight design consultations. She hung up. But here's where it gets really good. Around noon, Declan shows up with backup. Colin and their friend Bryce Turner. 3 grown men to intimidate one woman. Except I wasn't alone. I was having lunch with my brother Miguel. He's a police officer, off duty, but still in uniform from his morning shift because he'd stopped by after work. We were watching football and catching up on family drama when we heard commotion outside my second-floor apartment. Miguel stepped onto the balcony first. "What's going on down there?" I joined him and looked down to see Bryce trying to jimmy my electronic lock while Colin was arguing with my building's doorman about access codes. Declan was directing them like he owned the place, gesturing wildly and clearly agitated. "Gentlemen," Miguel called down in his cop voice, "that's breaking and entering. I suggest you stop." Bryce looked up from the lock he was failing to break. "Who the hell are you?" Miguel showed his badge. "Someone who's about to arrest you if you don't step away from that door." They stepped away real quick. Nothing like a police officer to make grown men remember they're not actually in an action movie. "I have rights," Declan shouted up at us. "I live here." "Sir," Miguel called down, using that calm but authoritative tone they teach in police academy. "I have the documentation showing you were a guest who left voluntarily. You have no legal claim to this property." "She has my things!" "Everything of yours was delivered to Clara Bennett's address last night, as requested." I pulled out my phone and held it up. "I have photos, timestamps, and your text message requesting to stay there. Want me to show the responding officer when I call for backup?" "My grandmother's ring is in there." Miguel squinted down at him. "You mean the ring you're wearing right now?" Declan looked down at his right hand where his grandmother's signet ring sat exactly where it always did. That's a different one." Miguel actually laughed. "Wow, this is embarrassing for you, man." Colin and Bryce started backing away, realizing this wasn't going their way, and they definitely didn't want to be arrested for helping with what was clearly a domestic dispute gone wrong. "Sorry, man," Colin said, grabbing Bryce's arm. "Declan, you said she stole your stuff." "I have receipts from when I changed my locks, photos of his belongings being properly delivered, and his text message saying he was staying at Clara's. Want to see the documentation?" I held up my phone again. They left with their tails between their legs, leaving Declan standing there alone on the sidewalk like the abandoned child he was emotionally. "How could you do this to me?" he called up. "How could you text me that you're staying at another woman's house and expect me to be okay with it? It was a test to see if you'd fight for me." And there it was, the manipulation I should have seen months ago. If you really loved me, you wouldn't play games. You failed your own test. You're supposed to chase after me. I'm not a dunning, Declan. I don't chase. I replace. His face went from entitled to panicked in real time. Replace? Already have coffee plans with Adrian Foster tomorrow. You remember Adrian, the architect who actually owns his own place and doesn't need to crash at clients' apartments? That hit him where it hurt. Adrian was someone we'd met at a networking event 3 weeks ago. Successful, established, had asked for my number right in front of Declan while making polite conversation about sustainable architecture. I'd been flattered but committed, so I'd declined politely. Apparently, I was no longer committed. You wouldn't. Watch me. He started crying then. Not sad tears, angry, entitled, how dare the world not revolve around me tears. The kind of crying that says, I'm upset that my actions have consequences, rather than I'm sorry for what I did. I'll tell everyone you're crazy. Go ahead. I'll share the screenshots of you and Clara planning your little sleepover while you were still living with me. Nobody will believe you. Your friend group already knows. Zoe posted in our group chat asking if anyone was surprised you finally showed your true colors. Spoiler alert, nobody was. Miguel put his hand on my shoulder. You want me to escort him off the property? That would be great, actually. You heard her. Move along. Declan finally left, but not before shouting something about how I'd regret this and he'd make sure everyone knew how psycho I was. Empty threats from a man who just realized his safety net had been removed. After they left, Miguel and I went back inside to finish lunch. I'm proud of you, he said, settling back into the couch. That took guts. Did it? It felt pretty obvious to me. Most people would have tried to work it out, given him another chance. You saw the red flag and acted on it immediately. Mom raised us better than that. She did. Want me to file a report about the attempted break-in? Not unless he comes back, but I might take you up on that later. Miguel stayed for another hour, partly as brotherly support and partly because he wanted to make sure Declan didn't come back with reinforcements. We talked about family, work, his girlfriend Maria, who I actually liked, and how proud our parents would be that their kids had turned out to be functional adults who didn't tolerate disrespect. As he was leaving, Miguel paused at the door. You know this isn't over, right? Guys like that don't just accept consequences and move on. I know. That's why I documented everything. Smart. Call me if he escalates. I will. But I had no idea how much Declan was about to escalate. The next few days would prove that entitled men don't go quietly when their comfortable arrangements get disrupted. So Declan had been couch surfing for 3 days. Colin kicked him out because having a crying grown man on my couch is killing my dating life. Clara wouldn't return his calls after her boyfriend threatened to dump her for the drama. He tried staying with Bryce, but apparently becomes unbearably whiny within hours according to the group chat Zoe showed me. But yesterday, he pulled something that surprised even me. I get a call from my credit card company about suspicious activity. Someone tried to use my Amazon Prime account to order $1,500 worth of gaming equipment for delivery to an address I didn't recognize. When that failed because I'd already removed him, they tried to open a new credit line using my information. Identity theft. My successful, freeloading ex-boyfriend tried to commit identity theft against the woman who'd supported him for 6 months. Called the non-emergency police line, filed a report with Detective Wilson. He said attempted identity theft is a felony, especially with the financial amount involved and the documented pattern of harassment. Do you want to press charges, Ms. Rodriguez? I need to think about it. Take your time, but I should warn you, men like this usually escalate when they realize they've lost control. Document everything. Then I get a call from my best friend Zoe. Girl, Declan just called me asking for money. Said you owed him 3 months of support to get back on his feet because you'd been financially controlling him. He what now? I laughed and hung up. But Isabel, he's telling people you were abusive and controlled his money, which is hilarious since everyone knows he never had any money to control. Let him. I've got his text history talking about how grateful he was, that I took care of everything, so he could focus on his creative work. The best part came this afternoon. I get a LinkedIn notification. Peter Walsh from Walsh Creative viewed my profile, then messages me. Isabel, this is Peter Walsh. Awkward question, but is everything okay with Declan Rivers? He listed you as a reference on a project proposal, but Clara Bennett called me warning about personal drama affecting his professionalism. I stared at that message for a full minute. The audacity of using me as a reference after everything that happened. We broke up 3 days ago when he decided to sleep at Clara's house. They can sort out their own drama, but I'd recommend finding a more reliable freelancer. Understood. Thank you for the clarification. We'll be declining his proposal. 2 hours later, Declan calls from yet another unknown number, absolutely losing it. You got me blacklisted. Peter Walsh was going to be my biggest client. You got yourself blacklisted by creating drama with your clients and using your ex-girlfriend as a reference without permission. I wasn't dating her. Your ex-client seems to think otherwise, so does her boyfriend. How am I supposed to work now? Maybe try being professional instead of mixing business with your personal life. This is all your fault. No, Declan. This is all your fault. You chose Clara. You chose to lie. You chose to play games. Every consequence you're facing is from your choices. I'm going to sue you. With what money? And which lawyer is going to take a case of I cheated and faced consequences? He made some incoherent threats and hung up. Yesterday evening, he pulled his final desperate move. He showed up with a U-Haul truck, a U-Haul, said he was moving back in, and I had no legal right to keep him out. He brought backup again, this time Colin and some guy I didn't recognize, apparently hired muscle from Craigslist because his friend group had abandoned him. Except I wasn't alone either. I was having dinner with Adrian Foster. Our coffee date had gone so well, we'd progressed to actual dinner dates. Adrian's 34, owns his own architectural firm, has his own house in the suburbs, and splits every check 50-50 without being asked. He's the kind of man who shows up when he says he will and doesn't need to crash at clients' houses. Also present, Miguel, off-duty but still carrying his badge, and my neighbor Danny Patterson, who's built like a linebacker and was helping me mount a new TV. We heard commotion outside and looked down from my second-floor window. Declan was directing Colin and the Craigslist guy to start loading my patio furniture into the U-Haul. My furniture that I'd bought and paid for. Miguel stepped onto the balcony. "Gentlemen, that's theft. I suggest you put that furniture back." "Who are you?" the Craigslist guy called up. Miguel showed his badge. "Someone who's about to arrest you if you don't stop stealing." They put the furniture back immediately. Colin started backing away, recognizing this was about to become a legal problem. "Declan, you said this was your stuff." "I lived here. I have rights." "Sir," Miguel called down, "I have the documentation showing you were a guest who left voluntarily. You have no legal claim to this property or its contents." "She has my things." Adrian leaned over the balcony, and I have to admit, there was something satisfying about Declan seeing me with a man who actually had his life together. "You mean the gaming equipment that was delivered to 417 Maple Street 3 days ago? Because I helped load those boxes." Declan looked up and saw Adrian for the first time. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm the guy who actually pays for his own dates," Danny laughed from behind us. "Damn, that was cold." The Craigslist guy was already walking away. "I'm not getting arrested for this drama. Find your own truck driver." "My grandmother's ring," Declan shouted desperately. "You mean this ring?" He held up his hand where the ring still sat. "The one you're currently wearing?" Colin grabbed Declan's arm. "Dude, this is embarrassing. Let's go." "She ruined my life." "You ruined your own life," Adrian called down calmly, like an adult would understand. I decided to press charges for the identity theft. Not out of spite, but because he'd tried to defraud me twice more. Once with a fake utility company claiming I owed money, and once trying to access my work email to prove I was lying about him. Detective Wilson called this morning. They arrested Declan last night. He's being charged with attempted identity theft, fraud, and harassment. Apparently, he'd been calling my office pretending to be my husband reporting emergencies. His bail was set at $2,500. Colin called from the jail. "Isabel, you need to bail him out." "Why would I bail out someone who committed crimes against me?" "He's learned his lesson." "Has he?" "Because he's made 3 separate attempts to defraud me and harassed my workplace. This will ruin his life." "He ruined his own life. What do you want from me?" "He loves you." "He loved my apartment and my financial support. There's a difference." "As for me, life is excellent. Adrian and I are taking things at a mature pace. Actual partnership between equals. My apartment is peaceful. My bank account is recovering without an extra $400 monthly drain." Declan's last text before his arrest, "You'll never find another man like me." Thank God for that. The bar was on the floor. I picked it up, dusted it off, and raised it to where it should have been all along.